Hi again then guys, and welcome to the 64th episode of Days Gone By, the review series for Gran Turismo's classic cars, first and foremost, with some vintage cars there as well. And some of these cars are of course very historically significant, something like a Mercedes Gullwing or a BMW 507. Then you have others which aren't necessarily on the same kind of radar that those vehicles are, smaller, more forgotten classics, but often those vehicles can be brilliant in their own little way as well. This vehicle definitely isn't a forgotten classic. It is a very historically significant one, but at the same time it's not used as often as you'd probably expect. There are certainly some people who do, but as far as classics go, especially given the lineage of this car, it does surprise me that you don't see a few more people using this vehicle. It's a Prince Skyline, one of the original performance Skylines, and the other Prince Skyline, the BLRA-3, is my favourite Skyline in the game by far. It's a very expensive vehicle, it's not a premium, and it's not particularly quick either. But it looks fantastic, it makes for a great cruiser, and it's a wonderful collector's piece. This one has some of those attributes, but it's more of a performance car than the BLRA-3 version. That car, as I said, doesn't really have that great performance. Even in fully tuned form, you're looking at around 250 horsepower, but still, it's not that quick. This car, on the other hand, has similar power, fully tuned. It's got 261 horsepower, 213 pound-feet of torque, which doesn't necessarily sound like it's going to be that much better, but it actually is a lot quicker than that car, and that is of course partially due to the weight. This vehicle weighs about 200 kilos less than the BLRA Skyline. It weighs 915 kilos, that car weighs, I believe it's 1105 if memory serves, so there's quite a big difference between the two. The fully tuned PP level on this car though is remarkably good, and I mean outstandingly good, because typically on a car like this, especially a Japanese one, a small, lightweight, reasonably high-powered classic would have a PP level of easily around, say, 495, maybe 510, something like that, but it doesn't. It's no way near that. It actually sits at 453, which is extremely low for a car with 260 or more horsepower that weighs around 900 kilos. Those are the kind of numbers that you'd expect from, for instance, something like an Integra Type R DC2 at the 475 PP level, not the 453 PP level. So what implications does that have? Is this a useful performance car? Well, of course, back in the day it was used in motorsport. This was, as I kind of alluded to earlier, the birth, if you will, of what would become the iconic GTR. There are a number of different versions, GT-B, GTR, and a number of different other ones as well, but the GTR is kind of the one that stuck the most. Of course, to this day, it's still around, but it was back then that this car started that legend. You can read some interesting info about the car in the game. There is also a shorter nosed version of this similar generation Skyline, a 67 model, and the S54B model, which is this one, has a longer nose than the lower grade model. It's around 20 centimeters longer in terms of the nose alone than the original car, so it does have totally different proportions. It's a much more nose heavy looking vehicle. But around corners, that actually doesn't hinder it at all. In fact, it makes it even better, and the handling is considerably different from that original shape, short nose version of this car, which is similar in some ways to the old school Bluebird. It has a very similar size and shape. This one though has much more performance oriented handling. It can cope with the power, it can cope with being lighter, and it can certainly cope with the performance that it has remarkably well. This car is very light on its feet, because there's a difference between being lightweight and being light on their feet. You can have a car which is heavy but still feels lighter than it actually is. Modern supercars, for instance, or hypercars, they're actually a lot heavier than you'd typically hope a supercar would be, because of hybrid technology, in particular the batteries, but they don't feel that heavy. You then have some other cars, though, typically in more mass production markets, which might be lightweight, but still don't necessarily feel that great through corners or even that quick. This car is light, and it feels as light as it is. That 915 kilo curb weight allows the car with 261 horsepower to be putting out 285 horsepower per tonne. That's pretty good for a lower level classic. Obviously you're not working with 400, 500, 600 horsepower as some of the other cars in this series will be, but for its power, it's a very impressive vehicle. And one of the most impressive things of all about this car is also the price. Given the fact that it is so historically significant, that it is a similar age and a similar kind of vehicle to the Prince Skyline, the BLRA3, the price is no way near as high. In fact, it's around 300,000 credits cheaper than that car, at 23,000 credits, or just under 24. That is remarkably well priced. Now, it's not a premium, you don't get the detailed interior, there are no visual upgrades, which is unfortunate, but at the same time, not surprising. There are still lots of cars like that. But if you're talking pure performance, well, it offers a lot of that, and a lot of usability, and in its own PP range, a lot of effectiveness. This is a car which could definitely win races for you. A lot of people go to the more obvious choices of Skyline from back in the day, like the 70s models, but personally, I think this one is even better than some of those 70s models like the KGC Skylines. They're great, but this one feels better. For its PP level in particular, it's a remarkably quick little car. And although it's not a vehicle which gets used as much as I personally think it deserves, I would strongly recommend, especially of course if you are a classic fan, if you're a Skyline fan, or if you're just a fan of cars that are good, then check this one out. It's not necessarily a vehicle which most people will use all the time, because it is a lower level PP machine, but at the end of the day, 450 PP levels come up a fair amount, online, in seasonals, that kind of stuff, so it definitely has its uses. But that's it overall for this particular pick. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.